Yeah, so the story there is a skiing accident a long time ago resulted in a titanium rod inside my right tibia. And I go through it like this. Titanium does not have a very big magnetic field, so you can most of the time walk right through. But in the wake of 9/11, they cranked them all up, and so I set it off all the time. And then over time, they've slowly but surely dialed it back. Slightly scary fun fact for the start of my talk. So I'm the COO. I am clearly not in charge of marketing, which you can tell because of the title of my talk, which is super exciting, called Designing Future Operations for Scale. But I thought about how I might evolve, what I talk a little bit about in the wake of the presentations I've had earlier, and I definitely thought a lot about how I compete with books and saving the world, and I came up with product samples on the table, which was the best I could do. So we're a confectionery company, and it's kind of an interesting journey we've been on, particularly the last 2 to 3 years. So the bulk of what I'm going to talk about is really sort of recent events and how recent events have influenced the question of how we and I am thinking about designing future operations for scale. As a former consultant, I think in threes. As now the COO, sometimes I have to go higher than that. So I will have 4 things to cover today. A little bit about us, which I wanted to do not so much to toot our horn, but to talk a little bit about the company, kind of our ecosystem, and a little bit about what we're aspiring to do to just set the stage for why we're making some of the decisions that we're making. It's not really so much a technology question, but as we've thought about designing for scale, and from topics 2, 3, and 4, I will start basically, call it January or so of 2018, and then bring you to the present. But in the wake of some of the things I'll talk about in a second in terms of corporate events, we had to think about our mission and values and how those are meant to enshrine how we're going to behave as we think about designing for scale and just becoming bigger and better. So I thought a moment on that. The third thing is if I thought about where we were January of 18 and where we are now, a little bit of the last 12 months. And the last topic is I'll throw some predictions that perhaps are not limitless, so I need to go home and rethink some of my predictions for the next 36 months about how we're thinking about the next 3 years in designing for scale. So first, a little bit about us. Started in 1908. It was actually a bakery on the south side of Chicago. The bakery is still there. It's near the University of Illinois at Chicago, for those of you that are familiar with Chicago. I'm going to skip through most of the chronology on the top row. Starting or end at 2012. So in 2012, Farley & Sathers, which was a branded company, which you see some of the brands on the table, merged with Ferrara Candy, which was a Chicago area privately held company. And that merger was aided by a private equity firm, Catterton. So 2012 is when Ferrara Candy Company kind of came into being. And I showed up in 2014. Play it forward, 2017, Catterton sold us to the Ferrero Group. Ferrero is a Europe-based, about $12 billion total top-line company. Long heritage of organic growth, and they wanted to expand their platform, in particular in the US of A, and so they bought us. And you couldn't make it up, 2 vowels different. Who knew? Ferrero. Okay, so 2017, we get bought by Ferrero, and we're basically a wholly owned subsidiary with a completely separate board structure. So we're kind of like a separate part of the Ferrero Group. April of 2018, which is right around when I'll start the balance of my conversation, Ferrara and Ferrero buy the Nestle Confections portfolio. So little old Ferrara, owned by private equity, got sold to Ferrero. We were about $1 billion top line, sold to Ferrero. Now we're attached to a $12 billion top line company. We buy a just about $1 billion piece of the Nestle juggernaut. Nestle is the world's largest consumer packaged goods company, so that's been an interesting thing to do and reflect on how we want to learn from Nestle. Play it forward to July of this year. We bought the cookie, cone, and crust assets from Kellogg's. That closed at the end of July. That's another, give or take, $1 billion. So now we're getting a look and see at how Kellogg's did stuff and trying to put all that together. So Ferrara today is a $3 billion top-line company. We're number 1 in seasonal sugar confections. For those of you that have candy corn on your table, we make more candy corn than anyone. We make about 60% of the candy corn sold at Halloween, and that's by far when candy corn is sold. We're also number 1 in candy canes. We're number 1 in my less favorite product called a Conversation Heart, which is sold at Valentine's Day, and we're number 1 in jelly beans on Easter. So we have a very strong seasonal platform, and the seasonal ecosystem is a royal pain in my you-know-what, because every year 70% of the items change just a little bit. We're number 2 in sugar. We're behind Mars Wrigley, so we're actually bigger now in sugar confections than the Hershey Company. So we're the number 2 U.S. player in sugar confections. And with the Kellogg's acquisition, we're now number 2 in cookies. We're behind Mondelez, Oreos in cookies. So that's just a little bit of context of who we are, and there's a fair bit of integration going on, so that's going to be part of what I talk about from here. We have a whole lot of brands, and you see some of them on the table, which is an interesting challenge. How do you nurture bigger brands and grow some very, very fast? So leadership brands are bigger brands that we think should grow disproportionately fast. What has to be true to support that in terms of my job and thinking about how to scale them up? So Trolley, if you're a teenage boy, you know who that is. If you know who James Harden is, he approached us to be a brand ambassador. We don't have to pay him a lot, and it's pretty cool because Harden likes the Sour Bright Crawlers, so wherever he goes, so go the Sour Bright Crawlers. Black Forest, believe it or not, we make organic gummy bears. So you can make an organic gummy bear. Believe it, my wife bought me a book that said gummy bears should not be organic right after we started making organic gummy bears. Brock's is very strong in the seasons, and Sweet Tarts is an acquired brand from Nestle. Butterfinger is the biggest chocolate brand, and there was a huge effort to reformulate the product you have on the table, the reformulated product. That launched earlier this year. Crunch, we have the rights just in the US, I think Canada, for the Crunch bar. And then you look across, now we have the Keebler cookie portfolio and Famous Amos chocolate chip cookies. Then we have strategic brands, which are, call it up and coming brands, maybe not fully mature yet. They have some cool equities, they have some great products. How do we think about growing those disproportionately fast or figuring out how to support those brands? So there's some Laffy Taffy on the table. Nerds is on fire right now for reasons I do not fully understand. As you work way over, 100 Grand is also doing very well, again, for reasons I don't understand. And then you work your way over to the Kellogg's brands. Believe it or not, we make also now Girl Scout cookies. I didn't know that. That factory is in Louisville, Kentucky. Iconic brands, all of these have a reason for being. And I'm sorry I did not bring Boston Baked Beans. I tried, but one of the problems with Boston Baked Beans is they're not widely distributed, including in Boston, so I couldn't get them yesterday. But we have a variety of, call it smaller brands that we need to figure out what their role in life is. They're not going to grow to be $200 million brands, but neither do we want to get rid of them. So how do we think in operations about supporting this ecosystem, which gets into some of the complexity that I have to deal with. So in terms of this last slide, is a little bit, one last thing about us. Why should you care about us? We are trying to disrupt. So I did percentages to not reveal the exact numbers, but from a financial standpoint, what are we trying to do? So at the end of the day, we care about the sugar business that we have, and in particular, we care about the branded portion within the sugar business. You see the brands on the table. How are we doing driving our sugar branded growth? We now have a chocolate business unit. Butterfinger's on the table. It's like and some Crunch. How are we doing on driving chocolate net sales? In the case of Ferrara, this is largely just continue to grow at the rate we have been growing, which is pretty good. In the case of chocolate, we acquired a bunch of assets from Nestle, let's just say that had not been nourished in a while. So it's sort of a turnaround situation. How do we reinvigorate growth? What's the whole ecosystem necessary to get the thing moving again? So on sugar EBITDA, we want to continue to grow both the top and the bottom line. And then on chocolate EBITDA, honestly, the expectation for chocolate is very, very low because we're trying to get the thing going again, reinvigorate the flywheel. So we set a pretty high aspiration for this year. Top line growth in the industry of confections is around 3%, 3.5%. If you throw in all the seasons, it's closer to 3%. If you throw in some other things, it's closer to 3.5%. So we're trying to grow double the rate of the market. We're trying to get chocolate from a negative 5-ish, to a positive 2.5-ish. Sugar EBITDA growth 25%, and chocolate EBITDA growth honestly break even because there's a massive investment in marketing and product reformulation and so on. So that was the plan for 19, and through the first half, we were crushing it on sugar for a lot of good reasons and a lot of, that was a pleasant surprise. We're totally crushing it on chocolate. It's shocking how well Crunch has actually responded to the marketing investments that we started to make. Didn't do much on the product. In the case of Butterfinger, it was a huge thing, reformulation, marketing. I still don't like the alien driving a Corvette ad personally, but if you've seen it, it's kind of a weird ad. EBITDA growth for sugar is basically on plan, 25% up year over year. And EBITDA growth for chocolate is materially ahead of plan because of significantly more volume than expected. So kind of a lot going on. Having a high aspiration and sort of living in the world of interesting things moving and grooving is just the context bit for what I'm now about to talk about. So second question, as we think about now designing for scale, and as I've thought about the conversations that I've gone on today, this actually still is pretty good. So our mission and values, we spent some time in the wake of the Nestle acquisition and the wake of attaching ourselves to Ferrero to say, we should really spend a moment to articulate what our mission is. And I'm going to skip our vision because I don't like our vision as much as I like our mission, and I like how our values are informing the way we're thinking for the next 3 or 4 years. So I wanted to spend a moment on this. This is about as touchy-feely as I get, so bear with me. The mission of Ferrara Candy now is sharing delight in every bite. And as the COO, I've been to all of the factories that were mine and all of the factories that are now mine, Nestle and Kellogg's, talking about this. And I will tell you, it scales wonderfully well. I've been hugged in Georgia several times by line operators. I'm not a big hugger. So generally, people like the mission. And what's good about the mission, and as you think about scaling, is our products are designed to be shared. Exhibit A, they're on the table. They're designed to be delightful. So as you think about the customer experience, the end customer experience we're trying to create delight when you put the thing in your mouth or when you look at it on the table. Hopefully the stand-up bag actually stands up and the lay-down bag grabs your attention because it's hard to find a lay-down bag on the retail shelf. And then in every bite is a testament to the consistent quality that we want to have. So our mission, we spent some time refining it. But as you think about decisions we would make in the future, as you think about how to honestly think about IT and how it helps, there's a lot of ways in which this mission resonates, and it definitely resonates when you start adding cookies. So it's a little bit dumb luck how good a job we did on this, call it January a year ago. But spending time on your mission is important, and then making sure it collides well with the reality of a company that's basically 3 times the size of what it was a couple years ago. It's pretty cool. So our values, we used to have 5. So we went down to 4. These also are kind of important, and these are important as I begin to think about some of the conversations that have happened earlier, starting with empowering. One of my jobs is to try to figure out how the frontline supervisor knows how well that darn packaging machine is actually running. And if I can give him the data on how that machine is running, he's probably going to make better decisions. I have my planning team here. I have Mr. Integrated Business Planning and Mr. Supply Planning sitting in the room. As they think about their teams and they think about how their teams are going to evolve how they do their work, we want to empower those people with better information, better tools, better systems to make the right decision, because then I can go on vacation. And personally, I don't want to work weekends. I work pretty hard during the week. I like to put the place down on the weekends. So the more we can get the right people empowered with the right information to make the right decision, the more good stuff happens. So this is a pretty important value that we slightly nuanced in the wake of the Nestle integration, but it actually has collided well as I've sat through the 2 days. Collaboration also collides well with the discussion the last 2 days on us. As we get inherently bigger and inherently more complicated, you can't do stuff without working across more functions. The seasonal team is a pain in my neck, but they know they need me, and I know I need them because I don't sell stuff, they do. So how does the seasonal ecosystem work? And how do you work across marketing, operations, R&D, the whole world to make Halloween be a success? We're just about done with Halloween. We start shipping holiday, believe it or not, now. And we start shipping Valentine's Day, believe it or not, a little bit in October. And then around December, we start shipping Easter. So this is crazy time for all the seasons. It's a massive collaboration effort. It's another one where how do you give the right people the right information to collaborate? We've talked a lot about the consensus meeting on, let's say, our Walgreens account team. How do you assemble demand planning information, promotional information, point of sale information into an hour-long meeting to make a decision about, do I massage up, do I massage down the forecast? Because once you make that decision, it's going to ripple. It's another collaboration example. Agility, Ferrara is known for being very fast and for making mistakes and honestly failing quite often on some of our products. Some of our innovation doesn't work. I screw up quite often as I try to move things around the network and figure out how to make them in plant A instead of plant B. So it's a testament to how we have succeeded in the marketplace, and we get credit from customers on this, on being agile. It is the thing that we think we do better than Mars Wrigley, the thing we think we'll do better than Mondelez, it's the thing we think we do better than a lot of people, so it's a core value to how we think about what we need to do. And the last one is integrations are really fun. If you ask the leadership team whether we were excited about adding Kellogg's to the not yet done Nestle integration, I think other than the CEO, other than Todd, we all would have said, oh, can we just wait one more year? The answer is no, because the auction is when the auction was, so we had to buy it. But integrations create tremendous opportunities for horribly confusing emails to get forwarded to me 43 times. So how do you want people to behave in that environment? That's why we put lead with integrity. You just kind of got to assume that people have good intents. Otherwise, you're going to kill yourself trying to figure out, why the hell did I get this 43 email forwarded chain to me? Got to lead with integrity. You got to back up and step, hey, what were we trying to do? I assume you had a good intent. And then let's hold yourself accountable to saying, what are you trying to do? Let's actually just get it done. So our values have also collided well, and I thought it was good to spend a minute here on how you think about designing for scale with well-articulated values. A couple examples of things that we've done. So in the wake of the Kellogg's announcement, we announced the entire organization 30 days after close, the entire thing. So it's a big hierarchy. It starts with Todd. It goes all the way down to the guy running the packaging machine. Within 30 days of close, entire org done, passed. So we've said, this is it. This is going to be your job. If there's a box open, we'll fill it. But this is it. Let's go. We get the unique opportunity as we acquire new businesses to think about adding new capabilities. So Mike Farron, who's my integrated business planning lead, has gotten to add just capacity of people, but also capability. We've built 3 now, sort of egg A plus 2, in-house analytics team. Because I'm doing so much integration work, I've begun to create a whole ecosystem of analytics. So a team of about 10. Some of it is project management. Some of it is data scientists, no kidding. And data scientists are really hard to find, by the way. But anyway, we've begun to build capabilities because I can take advantage of scaling up. Collaboration, it's a lot harder when you're 3 billion and you kind of have almost 3 business units than when you're 1 and you're mostly focused on confection, which creates the need for, I hate to say it, but a little bit more bureaucracy. So the question we're now trying to grapple with is, how do you create more rituals and routines, the cadence of the business, in a way that isn't bureaucratic, but does put the right people together with the right information to make a decision? We are agile. I get told a lot what to do, so my job is to try to keep up. I really try to do. And the idea here is we will try to continue to live in the, call it, fat part of the torque curve, avoid the red line, because then we don't service Halloween, and avoid idle, which is really not a problem. So how do we find the right, go fast, but don't be stupid? And then leading with integrity, this is just to keep reminding people, integrations are weird. All we can say is step back, assume people had positive intent, and I do read, when it gets to me, from the beginning, email number 1, all the way through 43, and you can generally figure out what the intent was. So that's a little bit about the values. If I back up to what we were thinking at time of the Nestle integration, so that's the 3rd chapter, and then I'll play forward. So I was trying to figure out how to come up with thematic things that we were doing consistent with designing for scale, and this is what I came up with. So first is, I am the COO, so I own cost. I own cost per pound. That's my thing. At the end of the day, I got to drive the cost agenda of the company because I'm the COO. So with the integration, we had to set basically a 3-year plan of when we pull the Nestle assets out and combine them with the Ferrara assets, what sort of synergy target, general productivity target should I hit? And my mission is basically to more than offset inflation, and I had a plan to accomplish it over the 3-year period, which we're now 1 year into. About 1.5% of the 2.5% number is going to come from what I would call our proven productivity engines, which is we're not doing anything differently, we're just bigger. So we buy things at scale. I buy a lot of sugar, I buy a lot of corn syrup, I buy a lot of packaging. When you add Nestle, you just buy it bigger. So no fundamental change to how the procurement team works, but how do we think about just scaling up and getting even more sophisticated at our proven productivity engines? Second thing is, I get to spend a whole lot of money because we have to take the stuff out of Nestle, and I get a chance to dream. And so I got to say, for over the next 3 years, what transformative things do I want to do to my manufacturing and distribution network? And the board said, okay, we'll give you the capital. So about 1% is going to come from, we need more DCs because we have more stuff, and we're going to basically rationalize some factories because some of them were not very good. Second thing is honing core competencies. So the Ferrara environment, and everyone says their world's unique, so I'm not going to say that. What I'm going to say is that our environment is a relatively high churn SKU portfolio, at least as far as I can tell. And I know for a fact, at least, and Justin loves this, at least in terms of the make assets, the candy making assets that we have, they're very full right now. So how do we get really good living in that environment? We must be good at that core competency. So what does that mean? Well, we have to be very, very good at the process of taking the napkin onto which marketing writes an idea and actually making and shipping the thing. That is the commercialization process. By the way, there's a zillion functions in there, but the commercialization ecosystem is a core competence. We have to continue to get better and better. It's a combination of technology. We use a lot of SharePoint. It's a combination of some interface to SAP, but not too much, and a fair bit of human beings. How do we just get good at that? We invested a lot in our integrated business planning team, both demand and supply planning, to just recognize how complex our world is with high SKU churn and very full make assets. Their job is hard, so we should have them have the right people. And our partnership with Bristlecone is now about 2 years in, where we said we got to get APO right, and we did an okay job of installing it about 4 or 5 years ago, but we got to get it right. We need it to work. And so we're on phase 5 of continued enhancements to how APO interacts with our environment. The first couple phases were a lot about plumbing, honestly. The last couple phases have been a lot more about enabling more capability. You get to do an IT integration when you buy things. So the question really is, where do we have to invest in platforms that are going to serve the needs of the business for the next 3 or 4 years? And where, honestly, is Ferrara IT just plain good enough? There's no debate about whether it was going to be SAP or not SAP, because we're on SAP, Nestle's on SAP, and Kellogg's is on SAP, so that decision's easy. But the question is, where was what Nestle did a lot better than us, and therefore if we don't do something, we're going to lose material capability. And oh, by the way, where would it be worth bringing up Ferrara? And again, Nestle is the world's largest consumer packaged goods, so they've forgotten more about SAP than I will ever know. So we made some decisions. We're going to implement PLM, Product Lifecycle Management, Formula Management, Recipe Management. That is a core SAP module. The road of people screwing that up is quite long. So we're trying to make sure we do it just right. So we've hired a third-party firm to help us specifically deploy the must keep this from Nestle and must accelerate the journey of Ferrara part of PLM. Subcontracting, for those of you who deal with subcontracting in SAP, it sucks. So when someone asks the question, why do you not love your ERP system? The reality is, it's like government. It's like democracy is the worst form of government except for every other form of government. So any ERP system is a series of trade-offs that have to get made. It doesn't mean we can't not use it. It just means where is it going to be? Subcontracting sucks. But the way we did it was pencils and napkins, and we decided maybe we should try to do it with some systems and procedures, because you can lose inventory, you can lose time. There's a bunch of things in subcontracting that can go bad. We made a decision to buy a quality IT platform. So we use SAP QM, but we've recognized that it's just not good enough. So Pilgrim is generally more in pharma, but we've decided to say, you know what, that's going to be our single platform, and it retires like 10 different Nestle systems and like 3 different Ferrara systems. And then we've outsourced transportation management to Blue Jay, used to be called Lean Logistics, and that's been a huge success. We've professionalized our transportation planning function, and they're going to help us scale. It's very easy. Their models, if you've not seen it, they have the guys that write the code and the people that do the planning in a building, so it's a pretty interesting back and forth. Starting the digital enabled journey, and so I guess I should say now our digitization journey, just to get the nomenclature correct. But the thing here was we wanted to be very, very clear about what are our initial use cases. What are we going to actually do with the data? And it's very easy to spend money. It's very easy to acquire data. It's not a problem. The question is, what are you going to do with it? So we've been focusing on forecast accuracy, and more importantly, you'll see in a minute, for us, forecast bias is killer. So it's one thing to get the accuracy of the forecast right. It's another thing to get the bias consistently wrong. So if you're too low or too high for multiple months in a row, you have way too much stuff or you run out of everything. Second thing is, like any manufacturer, I measure overall equipment effectiveness, and in particular, I want to measure it on more capacity-constrained assets. If you know how candy works, we make the candy, and then we get it ready for packaging, and then we package it. And you do not want to constrain the candy-making asset because the packaging assets aren't able to keep up. That is really bad. You turn off the thing that's in the bag because you can't get it in a bag. So we have been investing a lot in, we have basically a bank of 10 pouching machines in our flagship factory that should outrun the candy making line. But there's 10 of them. How do you know how number 1 is doing versus number 5? By the way, they're fed by all these conveyor systems. Well, how much of the fact that it's not making pouches is because it's just waiting for candy? It's got nothing to do. So it's a data problem. How do we get to the people running the pouchers how each of the 10 are doing while not waiting for candy, because they can't control that. And the last thing is we try to measure usage variance by work order. And let's just say we've discovered a lot of fascinating master data challenges with how good our real master data is as we try to figure out, why did we have a work order variance? That makes no sense. So those were sort of our proofs of concept. A year later, pretty much on target for the synergy number, which honestly I'm still a little bit surprised. We're getting more than we thought out of transformation, which we kind of knew might happen, but as you actually start to put pen to, we're going to move that line there, we're going to turn that off, you actually find knock-on benefits, and those have been more than we thought. We have actually lost ground on our normal productivity engines, not because we don't have ideas, we actually have more ideas, but everyone is just too gosh darn busy. So we just haven't got enough time to get all of it done, which is why we've a little bit shifted emphasis toward the bigger transformation things at the expense of some of the day-to-day stuff we used to do. We're doing a little bit slower. But net-net, it adds up to, I'm on target to deliver my synergy number, which, again, is great. In terms of core competencies, a fair bit of elbow grease, a fair bit of technology, and actually just more people to build a distinctive commercialization capability. We know for a fact we're faster than Mars Wrigley. We know for a fact we're faster than Hershey because our customers tell us. So we know we got something. Let's keep nurturing it. Our forecast accuracy is up 400 basis points. It's the best it's ever been. Our fill rate, as you might expect as a result, which is when the order comes in, do we have it, is up about 300 basis points. And that's despite pretty high asset utilization and this crazy thing called, what are all those Nestle SKUs? And now we have to deal with them. So that's pretty good progress. On the IT integration, on the one hand, it's depressing. I have to meet every single week on order to cash, procure to pay, record to report. There's just a lot of blocking and tackling. You kind of got to make sure it's going to work. But on the good news side, what I will say is, our friends at Bristlecone are really bringing distinctive capabilities to bear that we would not otherwise have had the time to pursue. So we had to take a little bit of leap of faith of trusting partners, Bristlecone, Blue Jay, the partner working with us on PLM, and they're delivering. So we were nervous about how it would work. The partnerships are actually delivering even more value than we thought as we begin to get really going on the IT integration. Starting the digital enabled journey, it takes a long time to do this, because if you don't have the use cases right, I don't remember who said, you're going to burn a lot of IT people's time. That's a waste. And getting the use cases right is important, but then it's really hard to actually get all the way done. Like, I won't tell you how many times we've debated our attainment and adherence reporting, which is a measure of did the factories make the quantity and the specific item that we asked them to. But my God, is it really hard to say, well, there was a weird work order thing. So you really got to get, once you agree to throw the pebble in the stream, you got to keep throwing until it works. So we've also decided to do what's called a lighthouse. I think someone showed the chart of a digitized factory. What does it look like? We're trying to do that in one factory to just prove it to ourselves, and then we'll scale. And we're going to overinvest. We're going to overspend money. We do all the things that you might think to actually get it done. So I have a couple cool charts. By the way, I made all these slides, and I don't have an in-house graphics team, and I don't have any videos. So I'm numbers and words and text. But anyway.
Make up for it in candy.
Yes, I make up for it in quantity. We're going to sell, by the way, about 800 million pounds of products this year, just to give you a sense of the scale of candy making. Not very high value density products, not like a mattress or, anyway. So I rounded the number, this is 100%, but what is our synergy target for 3 years? So the total synergies that underwrote the deal case to go buy Nestle, 100%. 32% are going to come from chocolate, 68% come from me. Thereof, remove SG&A. It's a different conversation. So core manufacturing, 60-odd% of the total synergy case is from sugar manufacturing and distribution. Thereof, about 44% going to come from the actual manufacturing network, about 11% from procurement, and about 5% from transportation and distribution. That was the underwritten synergy case. Where are we right now? We got line of sight to 38% in manufacturing, and we're basically done with procurement at 9%. Got line of sight to another 9% in manufacturing, and we'll get there on transportation, but you need new DCs, and they don't exist yet. So the plan actually survived reasonably well with reality, with some puts and takes. So on the puts and takes, we actually deleted one big factory consolidation, but we made 2 of the smaller ones bigger. So same premise, but delete one project and then make 2 other projects bigger. Net remarkably close, honestly. Procurement, we got there very, very fast, but then Kellogg's showed up, so we're going to stop working on Nestle integration and start working on Kellogg's integration. Transportation and warehousing just takes longer than we thought. We're not worried that we won't get there, but we have 2 DCs now, and we're going to 4. So until we have the 4, let's not really worry about this. So that's the sort of update on I have to deliver a synergy case, a little bit different than I thought. This one is the forecast bias chart. So this is showing, you'll have to help me out if I get it wrong, Farron, versus lag 2, how many of our individual SKUs are in the happy middle. So the happy middle means the item level forecast was plus or minus 70 to 130% of forecast. Okay? The top part is ridiculously low volume versus forecast, which is bad. That's extra inventory. It's obsolescence. Shelf life on our products is about 12 to 18 months, so we can recover, but you keep doing that, it's going to go bad. And then the red is bad the other way, like persistently over, which guarantees we're going to run out of the candy, and then we're going to run out of the film, and then we're going to run out of the crazy unique raw ingredient, and then we're toast. So we're focusing very much on how do we make more of our items live in the plus or minus happy range, which is a data problem. It's also a tools problem in terms of visibility. It's also a human behavior problem. There's a whole bunch of things wrapped up in the village of making bias better, and our village is looking happier in the middle. I'm going to go over a little bit. I can tell because I'm on 27 seconds. Anyway, performance management, you could do a zillion dashboards. It's not that we don't have the dashboards. We already have them. The big evolution we're trying to do here is take the dashboard closer to where it's actually happening and more real time. Now, there's a danger in that because of course you can do that. I mean, the machines know what they're doing. They know every time they index if something happened. So the real question is what data is relevant and what decision is the human being going to make differently given the information? That takes more time. So we already have dashboards. These are more like management dashboards that you might look at once a day, once a week. What we're pushing is to instantaneous dashboards, and that's a little bit tricky. Do I give that information to the line operator? My line operators generally are not MIT graduates, just for the record. So you have to make it pretty simple. And if you make it pretty simple, you have to be very clear about what the data is, what's the decision, and how you want them to act. That's what we're trying to figure out right now. OK, looking ahead. So here's where maybe I wasn't as limitless as I would now like to be, but the slide was done, so we'll talk. I think the same 4 things are going to be true as we now contemplate finish Nestle, add Kellogg's, and continue to grow Ferrara, and continue to get more and more attached to our friends at Ferrero. I think 3%, that's what everyone says. So I'm going to keep going for 3. I'm running out of small factories to close. So now the next question is, what's a mega factory look like? And there's a fair bit of research now about Mars Wrigley has built a mega factory. A lot of companies are thinking about a mega factory and what you can really do if you get to start over with your entire manufacturing process from beginning to end. There's questions about, well, what connectivity will we enable? And our infrastructure guy is super excited because he's going to put like Ethernet everywhere. So what are you going to do if we said, I'm going to get a big pile of dirt somewhere and put a big DC and a big old factory complex right next to it? You don't get to do that very often in your life, to do a genuine greenfield manufacturing environment. We're going to probably do one. So it's under evaluation now. Over the next 3 years, we'll decide. And if we do it, we're going to go. The next question is, as the cost of people continues to get more expensive, things like palletizing cases of candy, which is not a great ROI historically, starts to look better and better and better. So as the world evolves previously not investable automation projects start to look more and more investable. We have 2 3D printers. We don't have a metal one. If we could get one that deposits metal, oh my God. So we'll see. But those kinds of things are coming. So we're trying to just stay on top. Core competencies, we'll contemplate, I think, outsourcing less repetitive stuff. I think the experiment with BlueJay has gone very, very well in terms of them being, call it an expert function, not a transactional function. So we might consider a few more as we continue to scale. People have told us they can demand plan better than we can. We're not convinced yet, but we might at least give someone a go at proving it. We have done a fair bit of work lately, and some of them are sitting in the room, of putting better athletes into management roles. So a little less functional, a little more just good business person that's quite smart. As you think about agility, you think about how we're trying to grow, that investment has paid off pretty well. So how do you think about both athletes and people that are really, really functionally deep? We had a lot of functional depth. I think we're going to continue to think about where you add just good athletes to critical roles. And then the last thing is, I don't know how to say this exactly, but understanding how business models work and being savvy at it is a kind of skill. And as you think about digital and digitization and all these things, you need people that kind of understand it, because otherwise you spend all your time explaining it to them. And by the way, it's going to get explained to me at some point. So who are those people and how do you get them? I think over the next 3 years, we're going to try to find them and hire them. IT integration, you got to do a lot of blocking and tackling stuff. But as soon as we get done with Nestle, as soon as we get done with Kellogg's, the next question is what transformations do we want to do? So be disciplined about, we're going to do that one in year 2, that one in year 3. And the partnership between IT and the business users at actually writing down what they really, really want is super important. Like, we shouldn't let IT code until you've been super clear about what you're going to do with it. That's a discipline that we need to continue to build. The digital enabled journey, you got to have the use cases, because if you don't, you can waste a lot of time and you can forget why you did it. Debugging and finalizing solutions is depressing how long it takes to actually get it really, really, really seamless. So you got to spend the time. You got to have the right people to understand what actually is the data telling me. So that also takes time. However, the size of the prize is there. We know it. We just think it's going to take longer than we thought. So that's how I think about designing for scale for the next 3 years. And that is all that I have. Sorry I went over.
Thank you.